Welcome back to Wrecker's Accurate Tier Listings. In today's tier list, we'll be looking at the 31 playable characters in Castle Crashers. Green Knight sucks. He sucks. So Green Knight is the only character in the game that has a different heavy attack. So instead of spinning his weapon like a normal person, the Green Knight just does a backflip. This in turn makes his melee damage 20% less than literally every single character in the game. On top of that, the Green Knight really struggles to juggle enemies because of his backflip. I just hate it. It's a shame because his magic is actually quite good. The Green Knight's magic does a lot of damage to large bosses and also poisons smaller ones. But bro just had to backflip and ruin everything. Because of this, the Green Knight is going to go in the Green Knight tier. I just can't put him in F tier because he's just worse than every other character in the list.
Mr. Electric, send him to the principal's office and have him expelled!
The complete opposite of Green Knight, the Red Knight is awesome. Actually taking his job seriously as a knight, the Red Knight can juggle enemies normally. His main magic can melt bosses, melt beefies, and melt regular enemies. Just look at the dude, he's making that beefy his... Now is a good time to mention, I am not going to be including enemy resistances in this tier list. If you didn't know, enemies and bosses can have resistances to different elements in the game. For example, the cult minions have a 100% resistance to all elemental damage. Personally, I don't think it matters all that much. If I just saw Red Knight annihilate the entire game, but all of a sudden tickles the cult minions, that would not change his ranking from an S tier, just melee them. S tier. The Blue Knight is very unique. This is because he is kind of poopy against bosses as his magic does not hit many times. On top of that, it also uses a lot of magic just to do his splash attack and has a pretty slow recharge rate. After hearing this, you will probably think, oh, the Blue Knight is terrible. Wrong. Blue Knight excels when it comes to everything else in the game. The Blue Knight can freeze beefies, enemies, and even small bosses. Like, look at this. On top of that, the Blue Knight has the best elemental infusion in the game as he's able to freeze people with his melee and there's no cooldown. S tier. Orange Knight is basically Green Knight but better. He can set enemies on fire, doing damage over time, and has one of the coolest magic animations in the game. But in my testing, it does feel like his magic hits a little slower on larger bosses than Green Knight, meaning he will have a lower DPS. But with that being said, Orange Knight is going to be a B tier. Grey Knights are a bit of a weird one. They have the worst splash magic in the game, that being Arrow Rain, but the Grey Knight also has a bomb as a throwable magic. Yeah, just a straight up bomb. The magic bomb works the exact same way as the store-bought bombs, but it scales with a magic level. It does a lot of damage and is really great against beefies and regular enemies. It can also set enemies on fire, doing damage over time. So with the worst splash magic but one of the best throwable magics, this gives the Grey Knight a very deserving C tier. The Barbarian is one of my favourite characters in Castle Crashers. He has such a simple yet cool design and I love his magic. The Barbarian's splash magic looks awesome and fits the character very well, but unfortunately it does suck. It's basically just an Arrow Rain reskin and he doesn't throw bombs. This unfortunately makes the Barbarian a D tier. The Thief looks like a butthole, F tier. S tier. Next is the Beekeeper. Alright, so to no one's surprise, the Fencer is OP. He has the best magic in the game for melting large bosses. His magic is not the best when it comes to fighting beefies and normal enemies, but just spam throwable magic or melee, it's all good. So to no one's surprise, Fencer is an S tier. The Beekeeper is quite unique as it has the only splash magic that deals normal damage to targets in the air. Basically, the Beekeeper has the best magic when it comes to hitting enemies in the air, very cool. Once a bee hits a target, it dies and cannot do any more damage, meaning the Beekeeper's splash magic cannot hit multiple times like the Fencer, making the maximum number of hits possible on an enemy 7. On top of that, I really think there was a missed opportunity here to give the Beekeeper poison magic similar to the Green Knight, D tier. I'm pretty biased when it comes to the alien. I absolutely love him, because in a game where everyone has magic that fits their character and is all fantasy-like, my guy just pulls up with a gun and calls it a day. In reality, the alien's magic is not the best. It's pretty bad against bosses, but is pretty good against beefies and normal enemies. But what puts the nail in the coffin for alien is the weapon. All characters can equip this weapon, but only the alien can use the magic for it. Sounds pretty good, until you realise that the alien is stuck with this weapon for the entire game. This means that the alien misses out on all the stat and crit bonuses that other weapons provide. D tier. Yes, King! So the King is extremely unique, as he's the only character in the game that does not have an offensive splash magic. His splash magic instead heals himself. It has awful scaling in the end game, making it pointless as potions just heal your health straight away. Pair that with basic throwable and jump magic, making the King an easy D tier. So the brute splash magic, being the Thorny Vine, is extremely good, and I would say Thorny Vine is the most underrated magic in the entire game. It is extremely good against bosses and beefies, and the guy throws acorns for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I love it. A tier. Basically the brute without the acorns. Snakey is once again a really good character with a very underrated magic. Not much to say, A tier. So the bear is a bit of a weird one. The bear and Saracen both have a tornado as their main magic, and this is the only magic where you can move whilst being in it. So the bear is quite unique as his magic sucks against bosses, but that's okay because it's one of the most OP magics against beefies and normal enemies. The only problem with bear is he has the highest skill window in the game. The bear can do some wacky stuff when it comes to juggling that I am not good enough to do, but it makes him the best character for juggling. He also has some movement tech and can glitch through a giant door before Medusa, so he's good, okay? A tier. So the Saracen is very similar to the bear, so everything I just said, ditto? The Saracen has quite a unique magic projectile. This is Sandblast. So all the characters in the game will have a throwable magic that they can throw for a long distance. But the Saracen has a Sandblast instead. This ability is pretty good against large bosses as it can hit multiple times unlike a normal throwable magic. It also throws beefies and regular enemies in the air, setting them up for a juggle. But due to this, the Saracen really lacks in range, making him a B tier. Basically the Grey Knight, but with a better elemental infusion. C tier. Basically the Thief without the butthole. F tier. I personally think that the Peasant is the best character in the game. Not only is he OP, but he's extremely fun to play. I currently have over 300,000 XP on him and I don't plan to stop there. S tier. The Necromancer easily has the coolest magic in the entire game. This guy is just cool overall. With that being said, his magic sucks. His splash magic doesn't hit anywhere near as often as other magics and isn't great against beefies or regular enemies. I do love the Necromancer, but I'm going to have to give him a C tier. I hate him, C tier. Wannabe Peasant, F tier. Grey Knight without the bombs, F tier. The Fire Demon and Orange Knight have very similar magics, but there are some slight differences. The Fire Demon splash magic hits more than the Orange Knight splash magic, meaning for larger bosses, the Fire Demon will have a higher DPS. Apart from that, it is mostly the same as Orange Knight as he can also set enemies on fire. A tier. Spooky, scary skeletons. The skeleton's magic is alright. It does good damage against large bosses, but that's about it. It's okay against beefies and pretty bad against regular enemies. B tier. It's just the worst Blue Knight. The throwable and jump magic cannot freeze enemies, whereas the Blue Knight can, so I cannot think why anyone would want to play the Eskimo over the Blue Knight. B tier.
You shut up when I'm talking to you! You shut your mouth!
So we got robbed with the ninja, because almost every playable character has an identical magic to their NPC counterpart. So let's look at the NPC ninja. Pretty cool, right? Now let's look at the playable ninja. My day is ruined, thank you ninja. Although a massive disappointment on the animation, the magic we do have isn't that bad. It has a short range, meaning it can hit bigger enemies more often, making it pretty good against beefies and large bosses, C tier. The exact same as the skeleton, just with clothes, B tier. I love the Pink Knight. Her magic is really unique and it makes the enemies throw a peace sign when they hit with it. It is also one of the only magics in the game that can stun enemies, making it very useful against crowds of regular enemies. It also has some insane range and can hit large bosses quite a few times. The problem is, her splash magic could only be cast 2 times at max magic before needing to recharge. This makes it impossible to spam on larger bosses, so it's not ideal for something like insane mode where bosses have insane amounts of health, B tier. The blacksmith introduced Frongus to the game. Enough said, S+ tier, amazing character, amazing game, 10 out of 10. But seriously, I really like the blacksmith. Although his splash magic is not able to melt bosses, it does have a pretty unique use. Most characters' air projectile magic involves them throwing it in front of them, making it so you have to be quite accurate and positioned to hit the enemy. But the blacksmith's aerial magic summons a large Frongus, the exact same way it would if you were on the ground. This is great, as it massively increases the chances of you hitting an enemy, allowing you to chain aerial moves for longer. But it's also great in scenarios with lots of enemies on the floor, such as the Necromancer's fight. On top of that, his throwable magic looks amazing and can set enemies on fire, C tier. So Hattie is very unique, as he is the only character in the game that has an air projectile magic that is not just a splash or throwable magic repeated, making it so Hattie has the most variety magic in the game. Hattie is awesome, and I think he's quite underrated. His splash magic can be spammed and melt bosses, and he's just very fun to play, A tier. And that's my final list for all the playable characters in Castle Crashers. Sorry for this video taking so long, but I do have some exciting videos planned for the near future. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.